In On Point 1, we examine how the education row has reached Parliament and whether the monsoon session will witness a debate or another disruption. Rahul Gandhi has thrown his weight behind the students' protest and placed three key demands. Will Parliament respond to the students' concern? And in On Point 2, I bring you an exclusive conversation with former Union Minister and senior Congress leader, Rajya Sabha MP Renuka Chaudhary on growing students' movement over examination system. Renuka Chaudhary says today's students are informed, aware of their rights and their demands cannot be dismissed as politics. And now let's take a quick look at the headlines. Sonam Wangchuk says that the government has assured him of compensation for the families of students who died by suicide. He also demands no punitive action to be taken against student protesters. Terrorists opened fire at police in J&K's Anantnag. Cop killed in attack. Security heightened in Anantnag. Hunt on for the terrorists. OpenAI agent goes rogue in security test. Hacks AI startup. Hugging Face incident sparks attention to the risks of an advanced artificial intelligence. The war over education is moved from classrooms to the streets, from parliament to the courts and now to the centre of India's political discourse. Leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi has thrown his full weight behind the ongoing student protests, calling Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan corrupt and incompetent. Rahul Gandhi has demanded his resignation, saying the minister has become the symbol of everything that has gone wrong with public examination. Rahul Gandhi claims that in the last 10 years, India has witnessed 152 paper leaks, an average of one every month. According to him, crores of students have suffered while there has been little accountability.
What we do know is that 152 paper leaks have taken place over the last decade. If you do the math, so one a month. One a month, approximately. Every month, lakhs of students are told that all the stress that you went through, you're going to have to go through again. And after that, they told, we really don't care.
He has also backed the students' demand for action over the alleged police crackdown on protesters in Delhi, saying those responsible must be held accountable.
The first demand, completely legitimate demand, is that Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, who has failed as an education minister, who is known to be corrupt, should be relieved of his duties. Second demand, every single person who raised a finger on our students, and it doesn't matter who he is, the people who ordered it and the people who executed it should be made accountable. And the third thing is that the man who is running this entire system, the man who is finally accountable to all this, should have the decency to apologize to the students for what has happened.
Now the question is whether this will lead to another washed-out session or a constructive engagement in the House. Second aspect is whether the students' demand will get lost in the din of the narrative of mob violence versus genuine protest. And lastly, protests in India have become decoupled from the electoral results. Will this be any different? Will this be any different? And I'm joined by Zainab Sikandar, political analyst, K.V. Prasad, senior journalist, Arun Anand, author and a political analyst, and Brijesh Pandey, who joined me from studio, is the input editor of News9. Let me straight away go to Zainab. Thank you. My question to you is that if you look at the morphology of the protests in India, in last 5-6 years, they're actually decoupled from the electoral results. If you look at the farmers' protest, it didn't make a dent in the results of Haryana, didn't make any dent in the results the way they came out in Western UP. In fact, BJP swept there. So how do we look at these protests, before we get into what's genuine, what's not, what's proxy? Because generally protests and padyatras have an electoral outcome. In India, they have been decoupled. Your thoughts on that?
That's actually one of the best questions I've heard on these protests. That do protests really, on ground make a difference with the way people vote? And in my opinion, most of the protests that happened till now, especially the farmers' protest, I think why it didn't have an effect on the way people voted is because by the end of it, the farmer laws were repealed. And there was some sense within the farmers that at least we were heard. And there was so much infighting within the Congress in Haryana. And there was so much tussle between the leadership, that I think people in general thought that we would be wasting our vote if, and by the way, Congress also, had a good amount of voting, to themselves. But it's just that in Haryana, BJP just worked more swiftly, and then there were other alliance partners also, which had issues, and therefore, with the Chautalas and stuff. And that's why I think Haryana showed a different result. But the repealing of the farm laws also had an effect in the way people voted. And there is right now, a sort of an upstreak with the way people think about BJP, because they generally think that Congress is a lazy party. And therefore all the criticism that right now Rahul Gandhi is getting for, sitting outside Lok Kalyan Marg in front of the Prime Minister's house, and they're calling him an immature leader, for doing such a security breach. I think there is no winning for Rahul Gandhi. If he wouldn't have done that, they would have said he's just giving lectures in an auditorium and he doesn't know how to do real politics on ground. And if he actually sits in front of, the Prime Minister's office to, make a big statement, Prime Minister's residence to make a big statement, then, they're saying he's an immature leader and he doesn't respect security. So there's no winning for Congress that way. As far as the student protests are happening, now I'll tell you, there is a certain analogy which I think the central government is also making with the JNU protests, okay? JNU per se in popular psyche is seen as a leftist university, where wo to bacche hamesha dharne pe hi baithe rehte hain. So, people don't take them seriously. But in this case, the difference is that these are common man's children with no political ideology as such who are suffering. And when a child suffers, what you don't realize is the parents suffer, the family suffers. So if the child is feeling a bit jaded with concern to how the government is reacting to them, the apathy of the government, the indifference of the government, this utter silence which the central government thinks that it's their superpower, staying quiet and not answering and not falling for demands, not catering, not caving in for demands. This Modi government is particularly known for staying silent on important issues. So they think that, they can tide over this student protest also, but they can't, because this student protest is although I know Cockroach Janata Party, was the starting point of it. But now it has become a people's protest, and there is no particular faction that is aligned with it. There is no particular ideology. It's just children. Okay. There are 7-year-old children
just
being brought
hold
today.
your thought for a minute. Generally what's happening in the last 15-20 years, Arun, is most of the protests, when they say that they're apolitical in nature, the demand is extremely political. For example, the Gen Z protest that took place in Nepal, they said it's an apolitical protest, but the entire repercussion of the protest was that the traditional politicians and the parties got displaced. Look at the Gen Z sort of protest which took place in Sri Lanka. Though they had respect for the constitutional order, unlike what happened in Nepal, where the leaders got targeted, but it led to displacement of a Rajapaksa family. So my question is that how do we frame this protest? Are we framing it from the narrative of security? Are we framing it from a hindsight, which is India against corruption and the gentleman turned out to be a suave politician? How do we frame this? And most important of all, in the midst of what is being done, are we losing the larger message that the students genuinely want an educational reform in this country? I have laced three things together, I know. I have laced three things together, Arun.
No, I think it's difficult to frame this thing, this protest in a particular, straight-jacketed thing. It started, it's a very interesting thing. It started with a comment of Chief Justice of India. And then, this party came into existence. See, all the political leaders have now what I call graced the stage of all the political leaders in the opposition have graced the stage of this protest. It is no more apolitical. The biggest strength of this protest when it started was that it was positioned as an apolitical movement, which is questioning certain governance related issues, especially in the education sector. So this was primarily the strength of this movement. But now that strength has waned away because it has become a purely political movement. The political parties in the opposition, they have jumped on this bandwagon and they have, kind of hijacked it. And there's nothing wrong in it. This is the way politics is done. I'm not going into the merits or demerits of whether what they're doing is right or wrong. So one is that. Second is that while my fellow panelist was speaking at about they know that this is about purely about children. So simultaneously on your screen, certain visuals were running in which heavy stone pelting was happening. These innocent children. So they were targeting the public property, and we have also seen while there was a kind of a strong lathi charge, but right now also I can see the visuals on your screen simultaneously which are happening. So we need to ask this. I'm not passing judgment. Are these these innocent children who want educational reforms? Is this the way to basically demand it? Of course, and you have gone to the even the government. I'm not saying everything that government is doing is right, but every government has its way of basically responding to the things. It is not necessary that anytime a protest happens, the government will immediately respond to it. I'm not the government spokesperson, but
Okay.
they have sent people to talk to, and you see the blatant lie which these guys are. See their leadership, this Abhijit Deepke and this Saurav Das. So they are blatant liars. It raises they are saying that their phones were, the representatives which they sent to talk to JP Nadda in the government. So their phones were kept away. And there are, the pictures which have come out. So their phones are in their hand. So it's, and their last thing I want to say is they are absolutely changing the goalposts. It started with the educational reform thing. And now you see they are abusing Indian Army. They are, targeting public property, the kind of ruckus which they have created, the kind of slogans. I don't want to go into that. They themselves have turned it into basically, so it's sad. It's a missed opportunity. It could have been a better, it was a good opportunity to, raise an issue of educational reform, but I think it's a missed opportunity.
You're saying it's a missed opportunity. Mr. Prasad, but are we missing the larger picture that NEET has become an issue and Mr. Pradhan has not responded as a minister as forcefully, powerfully as he should have in terms of having a conversation with students, and he has left it for other senior ministers to do the job for him?
No, I think, Karthike, if I'm not mistaken, there was a longest post on platform X by the minister himself, talking about when commenting on the action of Mr. Rahul Gandhi and anything else. So I think the question is not just Mr. Pradhan himself. Of course, he can take credit, the government can take credit, the retest was done in a fairly good manner and all that, that's fine. But the first misery that remained unaddressed to a large extent. The fact remains these people were sitting in a peaceful protest till the day before at Jantar Mantar. We didn't hear, at least there was no public conversation about any reach out from the government or anybody, any emissary trying to understand what was it exactly. So probably the government said, "Theek hai, baithe rahe to dekhi jayegi" types. I don't know. I have no idea because we only did not read many reports. The question is, these are students who belong to India. It is not an organized political party per se, because by the very declaration they have said we are not a political movement. And yesterday, I think the poll you had mentioned in your show shows that not many people even consider Mr. Deepke as their leader. They are there for a cause, they say, right? So when we are getting these mixed signals from the ground, of course, the government has to engage with its own people. If there are issues, you don't have to say at the top, but there are always mechanisms in which these are addressed. Every political party will try and stir the political cauldron when it is available. I mean, when Anna Hazare movement was happening, you saw people in parties in the opposition also joined or started conversations. So That's the nature of politics. We understand that. But how do you keep it apolitical? The farmers' protest did not allow any political leaders to occupy the munch. What most political leaders landed either was post the police action. If you see the number of leaders who reached there were a few leaders who went before, met Sonam Wangchuk and all that. So I think there are many shades emerging from it, and the kind of response post Monday police action. Because now people are questioning, was it in proportion? Was it high? I mean, okay, and I have covered many demonstrations in Parliament Street between 92 and 96 personally. And I know how these things happen. And even in those days, the police have spotters who identify miscreants and profile them properly. Among they are very well-trained people. And nowadays we are using AI. So and if there are instances, violence is totally unacceptable. But there are technology. I mean, police is now AI platforms are available every time in every crowded place. So I know that they are called as spotters. The spotter's job in intelligence information is to target miscreants.
But
and
I think there has been a slight shift. If you look at the earlier approach was to ignore the protest or to confine them to a geographical space. Right now, the narrative, Brijesh, moves to delegitimizing them or to say that they do not represent the interest of the state, society and state. Well, if you look at it, it's also a function of power. If you recall what happened when Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister, early 60s, late 60s, the entire logic was once we have won the election, why these street protests are taking place, not important. But protests are part of democracy for opposition to rework its agenda when they have lost the election. So protest, democracies are intertwined. But my question is different, and I'm asking you, and I reserve the tough questions to you. I'm putting the searchlight on our profession. You know, for the first time, I've seen such, I will not use the word scrutiny, but sort of attack on journalists who were reporting. Godi media, non-Godi media, I think this is unprecedented. I joined this profession in 1998 after completing my master's. I never thought I will see a day that in a protest where I'll go, some people will be hounded, some people will be celebrated, and we belong to mainstream media, and we today stand at such crossroads.
Well, I think there are two-part answer to your question. Part A is any kind of violence is abhorrible. The fact that the majority of the country and people who have been following this protest, they all were very angry and upset with the way Delhi police had launched this brutal assault on the kids. They were protesting theirs, and conduct of many senior officers, conduct of people in civvy clothes who the policemen refused to identify. They all have been captured, their pictures plastered all over the place. They were lathi charging students, girl protesters, women protesters were manhandled and all, and that was completely unbecoming of otherwise a professional force like Delhi police. But the way they handled and the brutality left a lot of questions to answer. But the fact of the matter is that yesterday one journalist was thrashed, assaulted.
One journalist, but the sort of language that's happening on social media.
I'm coming to that. So even if I criticize A violence, I have to criticize B violence. Nobody gets the right to assault anybody until unless there's a clear case, and that was completely unbecoming of part of the crowd to assault a journalist. Part B, the fact of the matter is, and since you asked me a tough question, I'll give an equally tough reply. The fact of the matter is that if we turn the inward gaze, we have been found wanting, and not wanting, we have been found severely wanting. If you look at major networks, if you look at major, places, people who once would revered and looked up to, you have to follow that person in your profession, all of that halo has been diminished to a large extent. Journalists, many journalists today are seen as amplification of the government's voice.
Are you saying that there's a crisis in mainstream media, or you think that this crisis is amplified because there's a community that has, or I would say there's a community that has come out, which is called a community of social media and content creators who have become independent of mainstream media, which was mediating news between the government and the civil society.
If you ask me what has Twitter done or what has now X done, now X and earlier Twitter, or what has Facebook and others done, I think they have led to a more equitable, egalitarian society where I'm not completely dependent on you as a journalist to tell me the one version of the truth. Now everybody has a phone. People, Delhi police said that, there was no lathi charge or there was no brutality of force. And within 5 minutes, once people reached to networked age, there were hundreds of such videos in which police was using force which was completely disproportionate to what was required. Things could have been handled in a much better way.
Great. Zainab, are we looking at a fractured reality, even as, it's a panel of 5 people, including me. It's like creation of a fractured reality, We are unable to take a position on what has happened in terms of protest, in terms of why it happened, the logic of it, the root cause of it. It's like we live in the world of a fractured reality.
True, it is fractured because also we are also wearing tinted glasses based on the ideology that we want to adhere to. Mr. Arun Anand just said that are these actually innocent children? Now that's something that he's looking at because he wants to focus more on the stone pelting than the very fact that there are 22 children who commit suicide, if I've got the number right, and those were innocent children. Those were innocent families that were completely broken because the NEET paper was leaked. And more than that, Karthikeya, let's just go to the basis of what a protest really is. A protest is people coming together and telling the government that, we want these things and what you're doing is not what we want, okay? And innately, a protest does turn violent at some point because not everybody's temperament in the thousands of people who've collected is the same. So if the police, lathi charges you, there might be a couple of people who will pick up, stones and throw back. This is just the innate nature of a protest, I'm saying. But protest is the cornerstone of a democracy. So you are telling me that, everyone has to be this mature, level-headed person. This is not the British Raj ki Gandhi ji ne bola, non-cooperation movement hum chalte and we'll be non-violence. Hum bas ek, march pe jayenge and that's it. We have to show the Britishers that we're together. No, this is a democracy. It's our nation. We will do as per what we think is the right thing to do. And what is the right thing? Asking the education minister to resign because the papers were leaked. I don't understand why there is so much of a hush-hush around the main, problem that the government is not owning up to a problem that happened, a very big problem that happened. And there is a sense of apathy कि हमें answer ही नहीं देना है, हमें जवाब
I'm really running short of time. That is why. ठीक है. So your point is there's an apathy and the government has not replied. Arun, you're an author. You were a journalist for more than 15 years. I've worked with you twice. When we talk about a fractured reality, when we talk about what has happened in context of mainstream media and the content creators, what is the first thought that comes to your mind?
See, largely, you are getting now, in fact, I've been in the profession for more than 30 years now. So you see, you are getting a huge competition from content creators. In fact, a substantial chunk of what you are calling the student protesters, they were basically content creators. According to the official data, which PIB has also released some time back, now you have about 100 million content creators in India. Out of them, at least 1 million content creators, their livelihood is completely dependent on the monetization of their content. So there were as many phones and content. So these content creators, they are in direct. See, the harsh reality is they know that they're in direct competition with basically the mainstream media. So many of them, I'm not saying all of them. So they are, I would say, at one level, democratization of media has happened, but also they are one of the biggest threat to the democracy because
why?
At least I'll tell you, because media is still, at least to large extent self-regulated, that if you do a wrong story, you can lose your job. If you do basically, run a fake or a deep fake, but these guys, so they have, they have, this authority without any responsibility. Every mobile phone, basically, which they are using or screen which they are using to create content and the camera. So that's a chalta fitta media house with no responsibility. And that's why, there's so many deep fakes coming out and, so much of basically, provocative things basically which are coming. So I'm not saying, so we have to strike a balance. And let me also just finish off with this thing. I wear glasses. I am not wearing even my glasses today. I was told, that people wear ideologically tinted glasses.
Yes, so, they do.
But ma'am, I did not interrupt you when you were talking, right? So
But I
let
would
me.
like to rebuttal to something he said.
ठीक है अरुण, come on.
देखिए, या तो आप बोल लीजिए या मैं बोल लूँ.
नहीं, अरुण, please, please, please,
See,
please.
I'll tell you. The thing is, what she said, that it is okay if a protest turns violent, and because everybody is not so mature. I don't think there is a constitution, there is a law. Everything has to be done according to law. Nothing can justify getting a protest violent. Please do not justify the violence.
You know what I feel? I did a show. I did a show on this. Which I had Makran Paranjape from Florida, from Tampa Bay, because he's teaching there. And I had Professor Ashwini Kumar, TIS. We did this show that how Gandhian thoughts have been absorbed, but they are easy for optics, but they are actually tough to perform, because any Gandhian protest comes with very important element, and that is restraint. Because if you look at the history, the biggest criticism of Gandhi in his own lifetime was post Chauri Chaura, where the entire Congress went against him. And the entire thing came down because there was demonstration of lack of restraint. So I think what is required, if they want to be a pure play Gandhian politicians or protesters, I think restraint and organization is required. If they want to be something other, well, they have to do it within the law. But I think the larger debate, the reason why I organized this conversation was, I think the larger issue of NEET should not be lost. Because, I have a lot of doctor friends. And for the last 2 years, the only thing I have got from my doctor friends is NEET.
If I just have 30 seconds, what I personally feel also is that, the government could have handled this entire situation a
I
lot
agree
better.
with you.
Because I would say that, strategists in the government were sleeping. Because we all have discussed from Wednesday, Thursday, that from Monday onward, the parliament session is about to start.
I don't know whether KB, I'm really running short of time, KB. A lot of people, now this is reporter Kartikeya Sharma speaking, not the editor. A lot of people, I'm not going to use the vested interest, from Rajasthan and other parts of Western UP also came in, and they joined the protest.
Well, so did I hear from Kerala, from Arunachal, from Meghalaya, from Shillong. I don't know. No, I'm talking distant places, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. So I don't know. There are people and
no, I'm not saying. That's why I said it's not the editor speaking. It's the reporter speaking that the workers from the political parties also came in. It's not as if
everybody
it was.
So the question is, this is not your classical protest organized by an organized party. This is a movement which has probably swelled on itself. And I think the trigger was Sonam Wangchuk, my assessment, and violence has accentuated that issue. Because there is anguish and anxiety among
it is a miasma. I completely agree with you. It is a miasma. I don't know what sort of an impact it's going to have on the parliament, but I think the larger issue of the demands of the students should be addressed irrespective of what happens to Pradhan.
Okay, just 1 minute. What is happening not just in India, but in several centers abroad that we are seeing platform posting, whether it's Insta or Next, is something which it's just cascading effect.
Okay.
I don't know where we go.
Okay. So, thank you. I've really run short of time, and I really need to tease my interview with Renuka Chaudhary, who spoke her heart out on this protest and also on Andhra Pradesh. So let me just take my viewers and on point to what Renuka Chaudhary told me. Welcome to this edition of On Point, and I'm joined by former Union Minister and senior Congress MP Renuka Chaudhary. Thank you, madam, for making time for News9.
Thank you.
Let me begin by asking you, what is your understanding of this Gen Z, 18 to 24 years old, protesting in Jantar Mantar?
Quite frankly, I don't understand all these labels of millennials and Gen Zs and all. I see them as children, as students, as citizens of this country, and a very informed, intelligent force for India. So, I think it's fabulous. I, for one, am supremely proud because in the past 12 years, I have been bitterly disappointed by the average person we see on the road. Everyone wants their comfort zone. Nobody finds anything. Educated people believe this dialogue bazi of this Prime Minister and all those funny slogans which his speechwriter has written. And these children have picked up and resonated what everybody feels but are cowards and don't come forward and do. They did it. They did it. I am so impressed and so proud of these children that it's my business to protect them.
Is it also a reflection of the fact that since a lot of children, and you use the word children, that the leadership age in traditional political parties is way up, and the people you see on the street in terms of age, they're way down?
Not really. There's a transitioning happening if you look at it globally. World over, there's taking a cognizance of the wisdom of the youth. That this kind of transition has happened generationally over centuries. But what has happened today because of information technology, being connected to the world, it has sort of telescoped a bit and enhanced the visibility so much that you have to take cognizance. Greta Thunberg, 13-year-old, who challenged the global leaders on environmental issues and changes. It started then. The visibility and the no choice but acceptability of young thought and the evolution of young thinking and how relevant it is to today's time. And they have discarded the jaded mentality that we tend to develop as we grow older. Experience, what we think is experience, cautions us. We become fearful, we become overcautious, and we become resentful of ceding space. Now that has changed. Then you had that Malala young lady who stood up. I have gazillion sarpanches who've been raped and went on to win a sarpanch election. And I think, I'm awestruck by these people. I'm thunderstruck and awestruck by this young lot to see they did it. I did it when I was in college. I was the rebel star. I was not the nice, acceptable, good, Sushil, Saral girl that I was supposed to be. I rode motorcycles. I thought it was a skill. And so I was the rebel star. I was the square peg in the round hole. But these children have that many more advantages.
What is the difference the time you yourself are a product of big protests? You have been associated with protest movements. So what is the difference of the protests you participated in 80s, early 90s, and the protests these now the so-called digitally empowered civic actors are doing in Janta Mantra?
A lot more awareness, connectivity, the ability to interact non-physically and know the way forward. And their rights, which communication has brought. Having a cell phone has connected you to the world. So they are taking informed decisions. I took emotional decisions. Mine was gut instinct where I said, this is wrong. I'm not going to accept this. That was my thought process and approach. But these kids are doing it informed, aware, know their rights. And they have the courage.
But there is also a difference. When you were in politics, you said, I'm in politics, I'm a political actor, I'm taking political decisions, and I'm making political actions. When most of these children, students, when they come, they say, well, we are apolitical, but most of their demands are highly political.
Look, politics is like COVID in today's time. It's infiltrated, permeated into every aspect of our life. Why do citizens have to come to us for a kindergarten, admission into some school? Why? We have vitiated the whole atmosphere. We have contaminated all the institutions, and we have politicized everything. So if the children are asking for something, what are they asking that is appearing political to you all? I don't see anything that they're asking is beyond their rights.
For example, demand of Dharmendra Pradhan's resignation is a political demand.
Hardly. It's a civil demand because it has cost these children their lives. It is the parents who have borrowed, begged, stolen to educate the children. It's children who have cut away from society for 2 years to focus on writing this blooming exam. And there is a simmering discontent which came up, and this was the catalyst. When it comes to that level that it's not one exam, time and again. Now, is that incompetence or is it deliberate by the government? There are two ways of looking at it. Incompetence, repeated incompetence. Why are they even sitting in those chairs? taking decisions that impacts entire generations of children. If it is deliberate, then it's malicious. It could be deliberate that they don't want children to pass and get through the NEET exam, because then they come into the employment category. And the government does not give employment. We have huge percentages of educated, unemployed people sitting vela at home. And parents like us are still paying bills for them. So that comes, and this lot are aware. And what have they asked? They said, if the man is incompetent and he cannot do this, the least he can do is resign, because that's the only instrument they have to say, let him get out of the chair. Because it's impacting our lives. Our colleagues have died. Our friends have killed themselves. Their parents are in debt. A father killed himself because he just couldn't afford it anymore. How do you live with that guilt? I don't think that's political at all. It's civil disobedience.
But you would agree that even if I say that it's an apolitical thing, most of these youth protests have been highly destabilizing for traditional political parties. If I may remind you of most of the experience which South Asia has underwent, whether it's Nepal, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's Sri Lanka, traditional political structures have completely collapsed. Older faces had to leave. They had to vacate the place, and they ended up creating an administrative plus a political vacuum.
It's okay. Democracies don't tolerate a vacuum. It is my firm belief that if these kind of changes happen, there's a transition that is happening. And temporarily you may see it as a collapse of systems, but it's also the birth and evolution of a time of coming of age, of new types, new systems, new governance. You do need to demolish the staged, third-rate approach, which is now obsolete in today's times. We've got to change with the times. Either you change or get out of the kitchen.
As a traditional politician, how are you embracing this change, keeping in mind that it may also make you irrelevant in long run?
Of course. Why is it? Do I have one lifetime warranty that I must be in active politics for the rest of my life? I'm very fortunate I'm here. I took a gap year in between. I didn't come back to Parliament for 5 years because I just didn't have the money to fight an election which is humongously expensive in Telangana, in the whole of South for that matter. It is hideously expensive. And I just couldn't. All my little savings of mutual funds and all I had to dissolve to get that little money in position to fight an election. And today the citizen who's living in apartments and has a car parked in the garage is saying, but I didn't get my amount. So what have we done then? We have dismantled the idealism of what was the basic structure, the matrix of our constitution, which gave us ideology. We had an ideological hook, which we believe, I stupidly believed in it. So I lived by that tenet that I have to do this. This is my collective responsibility. Also, I think belonging to the armed services orients you that everybody in the country is your responsibility. You have to do it.
But don't you believe that sometimes protests like these can get hijacked? For example, when the protest took place in UP, when UP was in power, India against corruption, a lot of people said, well, these are civil society actors, these are tech guys, retired bureaucrats. And ultimately, one of them said, he would like to fight elections. And then he became a political player. Right. And then he displayed his political ideology. Right. And then he shifted gears. So how can you be so sure of CJP? I mean to say, anyone can hijack it.
Look,
there can be people who
say... It has been hijacked by several players in this platform. It has been hijacked to a large extent. It has morphed into something else. And it has developed a life of its own. The youngsters, I had gazillion phone calls from across the states, from Kerala, from Maharashtra, from Mumbai, everyone who said, we want to come in. Auntie, can you help us? How do we go? Where do we assemble? There are people who've never been to Delhi before. These children are spending their own money. They're coming by train. They're coming by whatever means, but they want to belong. They need to belong. And I think that is the pulse that we need to resonate. If we are old and seasoned and blah, blah, whatever we are as the traditional politicians. That was our time. What we did was relevant then. I was the rebel star. I came in. It was unheard of. One motorcycle riding woman wearing knuckle dusters and fighting my way in is certainly not the traditional acceptable perception of what I'm supposed to be. But that's okay. It paid its own dividends. It made way for others. Women like me, good, bad and ugly, what did we do? We came into parliament and fought for a woman's reservation. And now lots of young women. And even now we have the traditional resistance. Those young, beautiful girls from Bengal who came into parliament were trolled by relatively young people for wearing trousers to parliament. Seriously? I mean, so we still have those battles and resistance, but it's an evolution.
But then after 2014, barring which I'll take up with you a little later, the Padyatra part, political protests and electoral outcomes, they have become two different things.
Yes.
If you recall, big farmers' protests, big expectation that it will have a bearing in Haryana, it will have a bearing in Western Uttar Pradesh. It did not have a bearing in Haryana and Western Uttar Pradesh. So there is a protest that is happening. I don't want to get into this larger narrative of mobocracy versus democracy, two sides of the story, police being hit or the CJP Karyakartas getting hit. But the fact of the matter is that electoral outcomes are not being affected by the protest post 2014. Why?
Because there is no autonomy in your electoral outcomes. This is premeditated, deliberate dismantling of the autonomy which TN Seshan to some extent had contributed and put into place. Who is this election commission? Even the selection process of getting an election commissioner in has been muddied. The CJ has been removed. He's nobody. Bureaucrats have been brought in. How amazing. And then they systematically dismantled it, saying that you cannot go to court, you cannot see videos, you cannot review the cameras. They've done it systematically. Where we failed as a political class, I believe, in the opposition is that we didn't bodily throw ourselves at every level when they were dismantling these institutions. Yes, we did articulate, we said blah, 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 but we didn't actually get down and say, no, we will not allow this to happen. Today, what is the election commission but a tragic rubber stamp of this totally, morally devoid government?
Is this the reason why your leader, Mr. Gandhi, has been using this word resistance again and again, articulated by people with whom he closely works, that we have to work around resistance because they believe that, India has become electoral autocracy?
It has.
It's contested. I'm not saying that. It's a premise.
Yeah, it is. It has. And let's face it, Rahul Gandhi, wittingly, unwittingly, by osmosis, has seen and absorbed this from birth. He has seen the ideology, the devolution of concept, whatever. These people can get up and talk what they want about Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. After all, they come with forged documents to Parliament claiming intelligence. Certificates don't make you intelligent. Certificates don't give you growth and mental evolution into better people. They don't. So by osmosis, Rahul Gandhi has understood what militant non-violence means. These protests today on the streets by the youngsters is militant non-violence. And no matter whether it reflects in electoral reforms or not, it does not diminish the power of the people. Every time I see something like this, I get electrified. I'm witness to history. I'm actually seeing by the people, for the people, of the people. That's what it is.
How would you define the conduct of the administration on the day the protest took place in front of the parliament? Because the police also has their story that the mob got pretty violent.
Listen, I have absolute sympathy for the policemen who are injured. They got injured in their line of duty. it shouldn't have happened. But what happened outside Parliament, as far as I am concerned, this is my individual opinion, is obnoxious and it is unacceptable. We were in Parliament. When I came out, the House adjourned. The House kept conveniently adjourning every half an hour, deliberately to keep us hostage in Parliament, number one. Number two, how dare they? They jammed our WhatsApps so that we could not have any communication to the outside world. I take that as deeply insulting and as a personal assault on my right to information and everything, and my right to privacy. They have actually disconnected our WhatsApp and they closed the doors of Parliament. I had to fight and yell at the watch and ward staff. Poor things, they were doing their duty. But by the time I was riled up, and then when I stepped out, I was horrified to hear tear gas shelling going on outside. You know, unfortunately, fortunately, when Pakistan attacked our Parliament the last time, I was the only member of Parliament in the compound where I stood and I heard the firing. And I thought, why are there crackers in daytime around Parliament? The first, you know.
I know.
And I was the only woman out there where I was walking up and down. I had actually supervised removal of cars which were standing in a line saying that if one petrol tank explodes, the series will take off. And I said, put them into neutral and push them out of the way. I stood there and supervised buses to be brought in and members of Parliament to be evacuated. The T-board children, the youngsters, the waiters came saying, our boss is not letting us go home. I said, don't worry. Till you people reach home, I'm not moving from here. And I stood there till evening doing all this. So for me to see that we survived that, and my wonderful watch and ward staff who were unarmed, they bodily threw themselves, and the vice president was saved from being shot. They died in the line of duty. So I don't think the policemen should really, I mean, they have been injured. It shouldn't have happened, but it has, and I wish them a speedy recovery. But please tell me, this government keeps putting out this word saying, policemen were injured, policemen were injured. How many children were injured? Were they armed? Your policemen were armed. They were practiced and taught assault. They must have had a review. If they didn't, then I'll question the Home Minister next. They have to have exit routes as per procedure. How to diffuse the crowds into those exit routes. It's an intelligence failure of two kinds. Intelligence on the ground where they didn't get enough information, and intelligence failure of the mind where they have no clue and they behave like Gabbar Singhs and they think everyone's going to quake in their shoes. These children came up to Parliament. They have a right. Parliament is in session. We are supposed to raise what is public servant or what is public representative. What does it mean? We don't come to Parliament to say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. It doesn't work like that. We've forgotten what we stand for. We have to be there to resonate their voices.
Do you think that the government is trying to avoid a debate on NEET?
Of course. It's an utter failure. If they had any conscience and if there was any Modi ka guarantees which they push down our throat and ears, they should have tabled this as the first subject in the agenda. Why wasn't it there? We had all given notices. I have given notices.
But the government has accused the Congress that Mr. Gandhi, at the time when he was doing dharna in front of the residence of the Prime Minister, changed the goalpost. First, he agreed to it, and then he said, no, the minister must resign. Therefore, if you can shed light on it.
I'm really, that's one thing I have to concede. The ability of this government to divert, dilute, and change direction is amazing. They do this all the time. Every time a national issue comes up and the opposition raises it and Rahul Gandhi stands up and talks about, articulates it, they quickly change it to birth pangs of Pandit Nehru and Christian forefathers of Rahul Gandhi. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's grandson has to be a Pandit. Huh? But suddenly they become matriarchal and they become very evolved in that. They are so beyond dumb. I'm sorry. And they think that, I mean, it's true. These gimmicks carried on for a while. But now the time has come. People have smelt the absolute tomfoolery and fakery that they do.
If you're so convinced that, this entire thing which you have said is dumb, why hasn't Congress been able to do well in states like, say, Odisha, which was for taking, and BJP swept to power? Or, for example, not being able to recover in Andhra Pradesh the way Congress did in Telangana, or to suddenly lose Chhattisgarh where you were well poised.
No, that is the
or
media.
not being able to come back to Gujarat in power for 40 years now almost.
Yeah, not only Gujarat, UP, we haven't come to power. In many states, we haven't come back for
Uttar
a long
Pradesh,
time.
Bihar goes with it.
Yeah, that's okay. You must understand and remove from each. Electoral politics and the mathematics of elections is completely different from the ideological hook that you work with. Whether we win or lose, our compulsion is to continue serving the nation. If we are not there in the chair to do it, then it is our business to ensure that those in the chair will jolly well deliver to the people of this country. And for Congress, we have been there forever. We've been there on the ground and done it. Yes, we have taken many things for granted. We didn't make the transition into the new generational thinking on time. We didn't do it on time. We didn't withstand the onslaught of this propaganda. They have the money and the machine to do it. And the fakery and the false attitudes and taking budgetary allocations for social welfare, women's development. Where's all that money? To show one face, to enhance one man's image and pump it up till that balloon is burst now. So this are the absolutely fake, the stories that they tell. And people were enamored. Initially, they were taken up. It's like the pre-release of a movie. And once the box office opens, it fails.
Congress can counter it. I mean, so you also control social media handles. You have your followers.
We don't have that kind of revenue or money. Let's be realistic. But we are doing it by the will of the people. And we will. We are making inroads. When Rahul Gandhi started walking, what did they do to him before that? What was his image that they had constructed?
Bharat Jodo Yatra?
Yeah. Before that, what did they call him? All sorts of things. I mean, I might sound like a Congress tablespoon now, not just an ordinary chammach when I say it about Rahul.
But there's a postscript to it. You see, when YSR did his Padyatra, he consolidated the Padyatra into a firm political game. Not only Congress came once, it came again also. It was unfortunate the gentleman passed away in an accident. But when Bharat Jodo Yatra happened, Congress party was able to resurrect itself as an opposition party, not a party in power. The country got an opposition and you had the government with 240 plus. But then the Congress lost momentum, you lost Haryana, you lost Maharashtra. It was unlike what YSR did. When you consolidated for next 10 years till that decision of bifurcation of the state took place the way it was done. Until today, your vote share is in single digit in Andhra Pradesh. But in this case, you had the numbers, but you started losing states like Haryana, where you polled, I think, more than 47% of the vote in Lok Sabha, or 46% of the vote.
Yeah, we did. But I want to tell you one thing. Let's separate the two issues. One, Rajshekhar Reddy in Unified Andhra he fought in a state. We were Congress. But that state, and there were state issues that we dealt with. And his 102, 108 ambulance gave us a big heft. It worked brilliantly and it was easier to do it there because we had a contained area, geography in which we had to work. Bharat Jodo Yatra was pan-India. And the humongous wave of people that came forward associated and recollected what the Congress stood for was amazing. It put these chaps on the back foot. And Rahul did what he did. Now, my contention always is what I tell my fellow congressmen. We have a brand, much like all the predominant brands in a commercial world, where in commerce you see brands re-established, keeping their market share, holding on to that. It is the brand manager's business to ensure that our market share remains or enhances, utilizing our
Middle
brand value.
management.
Whatever. I'm not accusing or pointing fingers. They're doing the best of what they could. They're the same guys who've constructed Bharat Jodo Yatra. But I'm saying it as a citizen, as an individual, and as a Congress person, that to market our brand effectively, we needed a bigger think tank where the inputs, and we had to do it pan-Asian. These are one issue. The other issue is electoral politics. When you come to the mathematics of electoral politics, SIR, EVMs, suspicion, there's no control. Also the history of this wonderful government of ours. Remember Madhya Pradesh, remember Goa, remember how they split, look what they've done with TMC. And now they don't even pretend. Wow. That is the only honest thing they're doing now. Breaking parties, going in, and they have had their middlemen from other political parties who've joined them. Questionable history. West Bengal is a classic example where the Prime Minister is saying, "Camera pe, dekh lijiye." He said all this, that the man took a bribe on camera. Suddenly he's qualified to be Chief Minister. Those are the qualifications that BJP goes by. They lift governors, they move them out overnight. Decent governors who said, look, this is not our bandwidth to sit and topple a sitting government. Dhankarji was bought because he did a brilliant job in West Bengal, where for the first time we saw governors sitting and addressing press meetings against the government they're serving. Wow! These were new directions which we as Congress couldn't understand. We couldn't take that fast enough. And then on the ground level, there is no reality. SIR, you cancel 60 lakh votes overnight. And then you're asking me about mathematics of electoral politics. They're two different issues.
Okay. And last question, very quickly. Do you think the Congress can make a comeback in Andhra? Ever?
Yes. We have been lax in Andhra. This is my personal opinion because I live on the ground there. And we were a unified state till recently. So we have not taken advantage of the vacuum that was there. And today there is a huge vacuum. Chandrababu Naidu and co can say what they want. But when he aligned with the BJP, his graph fell fat within 6 months. And today he's floundering because the BJP doesn't need him suddenly. Because they've broken TMC. You see how conniving, how clever. Nobody can outpace them in these sort of criminal activities. So they don't need Chandrababu now because they've got TMC. They're breaking Shiv Sena. They're doing Jigri Pokhri in other areas. They're doing this. They're out in your face saying that hum karenge. And this is to be celebrated. We have to be awestruck.
But what has Congress done to break ground in Andhra?
Well, not enough. I'm saying this at the risk of being damned by my people. But I am saying what my Congress worker in the state is saying. I am saying what the farmers have said.
What needs to be done in Andhra Pradesh for Congress to revive?
You have to get down and dirty. You need strong local leadership there to give them the confidence that we are there for you. We need to put Chandrababu Naidu in his place, and Mr. Jagan Reddy, who has the single distinction of ruining the party and the entire state, Vijayawada, which was the financial headquarters, he has, deliberately destroyed. Sometimes I'm telling you, there has to be a mental fitness certificate for people who sit in governance.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Renuka ji, for joining me in this special edition of On Point.
Lion O's family, super action family, Lion।
इसमें है फाइबर, बीटा ग्लूकोन, प्रोटीन, मैग्नीशियम तत्व, इसलिए ये शारीरिक संतुलन के साथ साथ शरीर को स्वस्थ